Okay, we're back at the Eagle Carving. Get this up just a little bit here. So, this is a class we're doing right now. And I would say most of the carvers in the class are intermediate carvers. So they have the skills, but they've never done anything like this before. So, and part of our basic principle here at the wood carving place is that if you don't step out of your comfort zone and try something new, or what you perceive to be just out of your skill level, then you really don't learn anything. You're just kind of standing still. You may become very good at a certain type of carving, but you're really not expanding your skill level. So this class is designed to get them out of their comfort zone and do something that they haven't done before. Always wanted to do something like this, but they've never done it. So let me readjust this a little. So this is about 38 inches wide, and the total depth of it is almost 5 inches deep. So typically the problem is that, you know, how do you do patterns off of something like this? So, you know, drawing the perimeter pattern is, you know, not that big a deal. We can get the extreme widths at any given point just by tracing straight down, and we can get the undercutting line by tracing underneath where it hits the table. So that's not so much of a bad thing. And we took off the arrows and the olive branches and added a banner instead. But the big thing is, you know, how do you know what the depths are in here? So, you know, there's a lot of ways to do it, but this just happens to be the way we did it. This fixture, this is a 4-foot rule that's clamped down the cleats that are on here. And so if I want to find out the depth at any given spot, I can lower this bar on this rule to any point I want and lock it in and read the measurement off the bottom of the rule. Or I can take a stick like this and put it up here, mark it. That tells me exactly how deep it is. And at the deepest point, the thickness of the wings is about a ½ inch, you know, down here at the very lowest here and over here. So from that, I can create the depth levels that we need to hit when we carve out all of this stuff. And at the same time, by running it along, I know what my initial layer is going to be, and so if I set this at a certain level, in this case, it would be an 1 3/4, then I can create a grid line, make an arbitrary center line that I hold to on each and every piece, and create a grid line, and so I can create the pattern for the 1 3/4 level. And then the next piece is about 2 inches, so I can create a pattern for that. Now, that was the original plan, but having cut one, glued one up, and started carving it, which you'll see on some of the following videos, that's a lot of hogging out to do to get down to that depth level, even though by measuring like this, we can drill holes down a certain depth, and it gives us a telltale on how deep we are, and hopefully prevent us from going too deep. But the big thing is that in order to simplify the process so they don't have to carve out so much material, which is part of the intimidating part of doing this. I changed the pattern so instead of being an 1 3/4 first layer, it's only a 3/4 inch layer, and that establishes a depth level that they don't go below, because when we start carving the feathers, then we'll hit those low points at that particular time. So let me get a closer shot of the eagle, and then we'll move on to the pattern sequence that we've got. So you can see that the eagle is quite deep. I mean, there is nothing that appears easy in carving this. There's undercutting up here along the top of the wing on both sides. This one is severely undercut right in here, and then undercut on the other side too. And you've got a nice sweep here, really big undercut. This is undercut alongside the body. So to simplify the process, I created all these patterns right here. Now these patterns, there's 14 patterns that gets glued, stacked up, and essentially does the same thing as a bigger glue up that I did. So here's what it looks like when it's all cut out. So what I'm going to do is stack these in sequence so you can get a shot of it, what it's going to look like when it's going to get glued up. Let me get back here a ways. So the first piece that goes on is and these are 1 inch pieces. This is 3/4 inch. My center line is on there. This goes on there like that. The double ribbon pieces go on. This is layer number 2. Goes on here. That layer number 2 goes on here. Layer number 3, layer number 3, layer number 3, layer 2, layer 3, and then the body, which is again, we use that center line that we created, and we put that on there where it lines up with that center line, like that. And then this piece goes in here as well, right about there approximately. So that's the total glue up. Now, as you can see, by doing it this way, we end up with a 3/4 inch depth down the center, which is the deepest part of each wing. And because the head and the body and the chest part, that's 2 separate pieces. I'll go over to this one. This is doweled. So it comes off, and then this one comes off. Get off with one hand, like that. So, and the advantage of doing it that way, by doweling it, is that you can carve in here without the tool being obstructed by the body. And if you wanted to, then you could take the body, glue the two body pieces together, and carve it separately. But the whole idea behind doing it this way, it's kind of a pain in the fanny, to be honest about it, is to make it more doable for the students. And they get to create their own ribbon shape. You know, they'll decide how they want to shape the ribbon. But you can see here where some of the other undercutting is already being done. You know, we're trying to get that hollow created and the shapes flowing. And then when that's accomplished and the undercutting is accomplished, then we'll take on the feathering process, but I'll do more videos before we get there. So now, this is the original one that I did that I'm carving. I've got right now about 3 hours into the carving process. So we've had one class already, and here's one of the glue-ups the student's working on. And so he's starting to hog out those wings and get that channel created. You know, this is like any other carving that's somewhat complex, and that you struggle with it until you kind of have an aha moment where, you know, everything starts making sense. And a couple of the carvers have reached that point already, and then the other three are still struggling a little bit, but it'll come. So we just have to add guidance where needed. We're fortunate to have, you know, a full-size pattern to work off of, so all they have to do is go back and refer to this pattern, and that makes a big difference, because you know, when you're trying to do a feather like this with 100 cuts and this sweep on the inside, and you know, you really all you got to do is look straight down. And you could take a rule and measure from the high point to the extreme outside, and which in this case on this particular feather is about 3/4 of an inch. So they can radius this down about 3/4 of an inch, and then it's really undercuts. So having something to go back and look at it and kind of make sense of what you're doing is a whole lot better than just working off a bunch of pictures or a flat drawing. So you know, we're lucky in that sense. This particular eagle was sculpted out of clay, and then they took a mold off of it and cast it in high density foam, so they can make a whole bunch of them really fast. So in a lot of cases on this particular eagle, it's not particularly defined, like the arrows aren't defined at all. You kind of have to know that, you know, they, in the world of carved eagles, especially back in the day, the arrows in the right foot, looking at it from this view, meant war, and the head is turned to the right. If the head was turned to the left and you have olive branches down here, that meant there was peace. So in a sense, it's kind of like the War and Peace eagle that Bellamy did, and some of the others, where if it's turned to the right, you've got a war, and you turn to the left, you've got peace. Okay, we'll check in later when we have a little more progress. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe. Here's a little follow-up on the eagle that was in parts, the one that we showed where all the cutout parts were just laying on the table. So now it's all been glued up, and it'll be started to get carved here in about an hour or so. You can see the channel down there in the wings, which is the low point. And all these little dots on here are dowels that I use for gluing up. If I locate it, drill a hole, stick a dowel into it, then I don't get it misaligned in the glue up process, because you know how slippery it is when you got two pieces of wood with glue on it. It doesn't want to go where it's supposed to go. So that's one thing I do. And then the other thing is, you know, if you're gluing up a whole bunch of these things, you need more clamps than God. And so what I do, especially when I can work from the back side like that, I'll screw it, dry fit it, screw it, take it apart, put the glue on, put it back together, locate in the screw holes, and then drive it down. And if I've got some place that's not squeezing out, then I'll throw a couple of clamps on it. But so that allowed me to put layer number 2 down with the screws from the back side, and then layer number 3 with the dowels, and then there's no screw holes on the top. It wouldn't make any difference anyway, because with PC Woody it all just goes away. Anyway, that's the glue up. We'll follow up with more carving.